Let's analyze transport network market in Bealand. This is Zeynep Marjan and I teach Sbl. We have a well-developed economy in Bealand. 80% of the population lives in urban areas and urbanization grew rapidly, which made public transport unable to handle the pressure. So public transport became unreliable and overcrowded, which helped making TNCs popular. TNCs had consistent growth in the last 14 years and they grew fast. So from the case study, we know that 50 million of the 200 million population of Bealand uses TNCs, a quarter of the population. That's a lot of people. That's a large market. When we are talking about growth, we need to consider that they're already being used, being preferred, they're already popular by a good chunk of the population. So we should carefully consider if their growth is sustainable. We have other data that supports that, and maybe you will have in the exhibits that the growth might not be that sustainable. We have Beago. They're the second largest player in Bealand's TNC market. They were established 12 years ago, and their main competitor is Zambi. Zambi is the number one TNC in Bealand, and they are the world's second largest. So if this made you think of Uber and Lyft, be careful and don't go further into researching those companies because you are limited to the information in the case study. Now let's continue with what we already have. We have a very important thing here mentioned clearly in the case study, that Beago has gradually established a significant proportion of Zambi's market share from the day started out. So very competitive market. Our company, in our case Beago, has been very successful in gaining market share in this very competitive market. These are two things that you need to keep in mind. Beago only operates in Bealand. They offer rideshare and ride-hailing services in 250 cities in Bealand, and later we are told that they are offering micromobility services in only 100 cities at the moment. In this very competitive market, two top players, Beago and Zambi, hold 85% of the market share. TNCs offer different services, but main source of income is ride-hailing and ride-sharing, mainly ride-hailing. But they're very similar services. If the customer explicitly chooses to ride-share instead of ride-hail, they can. But they should first check the box in the application. The services, I group them as business to customer and business to business. Again, the main service here, the main income source is business to customer because it's ride sharing and ride hailing. Two of the most important stakeholders is obviously customers and drivers. Drivers can also be taught in different forms. They are number one resource here, actually, because they're contractors, they are not on payroll, and you need drivers. Not just drivers, but you need their cars because you don't own cars as a TNC company. You want drivers to have their own cars, whether they own it or they rent it. The industry has a lot of challenges. They need people to have disposable income for them being able to buy TNC services. So they are going to be affected by global economic conditions. Again, this is a very competitive market, so attracting and retaining customers and drivers is a challenge. There are safety issues which can create a lot of reputation risk and legal risk. And there are, of course, environmental concerns that will really affect a company that builds their business on basically people taking cars to wherever they want. Latest developments include some TNCs starting food delivery in some countries, driverless cars, and electric vehicles. In terms of KPIs, we don't have any complicated KPIs here. You should be able to understand these KPIs quickly. Get to know them before the exam, not because they're complicated, but do not waste in the exam. Go into the exam knowing what you're looking for. So we have number of active customers and drivers, very easy to understand KPIs. We have revenue, obviously. We have NPS. Maybe this is a one you didn't think of before. Basically, this is looking at the customer satisfaction by asking them whether they would recommend your services to a friend or anyone they know. And we have driver satisfaction, which is important because we know there's competition to get drivers with TNCs, with other TNCs in this very competitive market. Looking at our company, again, they were established 12 years ago. Their main source of income is ride-hailing. They started as a ride-sharing and ride-hailing company. Now they also offer micromobility services and business services. They do not offer customer rentals. So they do not offer car rentals to their customers. They're a listed company. Their business model heavily relies on technology. So risks associated with the technology and opportunities associated with technology are going to be, I think, examined here, at least in some versions of the paper. So think about cybersecurity, data analysis, and disruptive technology. This is a public company. They are listed. 80% of ownership is by large institutional investors. Only 10% belongs to the original founders, and the remaining 10% is owned by small private investors. They have 5,000 employees in 60 locations, and more than half are employed in R&D, product management, and data science and technology. So this gives you an idea about what is important for the company. Again, drivers are not on payroll, they are not employees, they are independent contractors. Very flat board structure. Compare this, for example, to Courgettes, where the other executive directors report to CEO. But here they are at the same level. We see less hierarchy. We are giving nothing about diversity committees. We don't know that. We know that there are 6 executive directors and 6 non-executive directors. We are given the risk register. So risk management is possibly going to be examined. Think of Tara, think of heat maps, and also understand the risks. Do not try to understand them in the exam. There can be other risks. For example, I don't think sustainability-related and environmental risks are emphasized enough here. They are mentioned, but not emphasized enough. There can be other risks depending on the exhibits, but at least get to understand what you already have. And then we are given Beago's KPIs. We see that growth is translated into revenue growth. So we know customer numbers grew, right? We know that as a whole of the industry, they grew, they had more customers, and we know Beago was able to gain market share. And we see in KPIs that growth was translated into revenue growth. So this is good. However, we don't have benchmarks to compare for most of the KPIs, and driver satisfaction doesn't look good.